So, without further ado, let me introduce Mike Finley. Mike Finley is publisher of Leaf magazine and co-author with Danny Klecko of several books of Pod Thoughts. Mike's website, http://MikeFinleyWriter.com, is loaded with all kinds of cool, free, downloadables and videos. Please welcome Mike Finley.
I was going to bound up here onto the stage, but I thought I'd go through the glass if I did. Well, thank you, St. Paul Almanac. Thank you, St. Paul. Do you mind if I hold this in my hand?
No, go ahead.
It releases my inner Sinatra. Okay, I want to thank St. Paul Almanac. They've been really a good friend to me, and they've done a lot of good things for me in the last year. I was on TV, on their TBT show, and that was just a wonderful treat. I have a few things in my bag here. The first thing you should do if you buy a book is buy the almanac, but after they're sold out, I have copies of this book, Victory Through Song, which just came out this past week, and it's by me, and it's very, very inexpensive, $5. It would pay for my half-mile drive home. And also, a book that I wrote with Danny Klecko, Master Bread Baker Danny Klecko. Together we're sort of a vaudevillian team. Also $5. It's called A Pox Upon Your Blessings. What else have I got here? Well, here's a picture of me. This is a picture of me when I was 19 years old. And what I'm going to read to you tonight is about something that happened when I was 19. Because that's when I first moved to St. Paul, Minnesota. Who would like this? I'll sign it later. Maybe I should auction it off. There seems to be some demand. Yeah, well, thank you for that. This is the current me, of course. I came here when I was 19, but I'm going to start at age 15. At age 15, my older brother was the only Finley who had gone to college. And he came home from college one May or June, and I went through his books. And does everybody know what a blue book is? A blue book, those test books you take when you write essays for exams and stuff? I just happened to open this blue book from his most recent literature class. And I was just a sophomore in high school, but I read it, and I remember the poem, and the whole thing kind of struck me. Anyway, 4 years later, I moved to St. Paul, chasing a woman who's still a friend. I think that speaks well for me after 45 years. And 3 weeks after arriving here, I took a job at M&L Motor Supply. Does anybody old enough to remember M&L Motor Supply? They were across from Montgomery Wards. And they were a warehouse for garages and gas stations and service centers. And I worked as an order filler there. And I think people tell me that at that age I was a nice guy, kind of a normal guy. But what I'm going to read to you is what happened to me when I was 19 that changed that. And made me the man you see before you. I want to show you something. This is an illustration of a Mopar 1963 Fury tailpipe muffler combination. Many of these were stocked in the M&L Motor Supply, and it plays a critical role in the story I'm about to tell you. So, here we go. I was working at M&L Motor Supply on University Avenue, across from Wards, making $108 a week as an order filler guy while attending college part-time. It was 1969. My job was to take phoned-in orders, push a cart through the warehouse, locate the parts that were in stock, box them for shipment, and back order the rest. This particular day in January, I was standing on a ladder poking at the box end of a Mopar combo tailpipe and muffler for a 63 Plymouth Fury. Take another look there to make sure you understand. When the pipe began sliding down toward me, The box was 8 feet long and contained 46 pounds of hardened steel. It was falling now, falling from the stacks, sailing down to me like a bride. And it struck me on the left side of my forehead. There's still a dent there. The blow alone would have knocked me out. A baseball bat could not have hit harder. But first, it sent the ladder teetering back, until I fell backward and crashed to the floor. When I came to, I was changed. I struggled to stand. My fingers tingled. I felt an egg, a bud protruding from my forehead. I looked in the mirror in the dirty warehouse toilet and washed away the blood. And then I remembered. I had a final exam at 1 o'clock in my class that day on prosody in the humanities department at the University of Minnesota. I had completely forgotten. The Borg Warner clock over the carburetor kits said 1:25. Snow was falling and wind was blowing. I staggered out into the street in t-shirt, tie-dyed, but I did not feel cold. A 16A bus was just approaching from Hamlin Avenue, and I boarded, wild-eyed. "Where's your money?" the driver asked. 85 cents. I looked at him like Long John Silver under the egg and said, "You have to get me to the university," and took a seat halfway to the back. At the university, I stepped off the bus and made my way to Ford Hall, room 108. Burst through the door, and every eye looked up at the egghead from the midway in the torn t-shirt. I grabbed a blue book from the stand and read the question. Analyze A.E. Hausman's 8 o'clock and explain how poetic form helps further the poet's message. Ordinarily, I would have struggled in vain with this assignment, but I had been struck by a muffler from the gods, and I had insights I had never had before. When the pipe hit me full, it poured into me a galaxy of lights. I knew this poem by heart somehow. I had knelt on its floor and drunk its dark waters. I scanned the poem in 15 seconds and began to scribble in the book in big black letters. Each sprinkle of the clock tower bell brings the condemned man closer to his time. Each stanza of the poem brings his knell. Each line a stair to trembling climb. I stood and threw the blue book on the desk. The astonished associate professor shrank as I left the hall, and the graduate students on scholarship whispered about the mysterious boy from St. Paul. I would get an A, of course, but that was not the point. I was transformed. Beyond dreams, I stood on the walkover bridge on Washington Avenue and gazed out over the brilliant white cloud of toilet plant steam at Waldorf. Gods and goddesses choose us mortals not by our bloodlines or superior mothering, but because a magnet pulls metal down from the sky that tempers and makes us fit vessels for suffering. University Avenue begins at the state capitol, and it peters out only God knows where in Blaine. But I am with you to the fullness of time, and in my bones and skull I begin my reign. And that is the story of how I became the king of the St. Paul poets. Thank you very much for having me here today. It's going to be a splendid night. What a treat to be the very first reader in the series. Thank you very much, David.